Call the annual meeting of the Richland School District to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make sure that all residents of the Richland School District have registered in the back by printing your name and signing the form. Moving on with the annual meeting agenda then. Moving to page 6 in the annual meeting book is the mission and beliefs. This is the vision statement and the mission beliefs of the Richland School District. On page 7 shows state statutes and the powers that the annual meeting holds. And we will be covering throughout tonight's meeting numbers 1, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 as we progress through the evening. With that, the first thing that we need to do is to elect a chairperson. And so I am looking for nominations to have a chair of the annual meeting here this evening. Are there any nominations for the chair?
I'd like to nominate Aaron Umbihan.
Aaron Umbihan, would you accept that nomination?
Yes.
We have one nomination. Are there any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? This time nominations are closed, and by default, Mr. Umbihan will chair the meeting, and I will turn it over to him if you want to come on up here.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we're on to agenda item 2, reports, school committee reports. 2A, the building, property, and transportation committee report.
I don't think I turned it on. Thank you.
Neil Huntemer, Chair of the Buildings, Property, and Transportation. Over the last year, some of the highlights of the things that we worked on. We granted UTV access at the Richland Intermediate School, the opening of the Lincoln Time Capsule. We approved new scoreboards at RCHS. Hornet wings have been placed in all 3 buildings. Roofing project at RCHS. ESSER funding presentations and review. We covered the intermediate school's water quality, hallway upgrades to the Richland Center High School. We've completed Jefferson building appraisals with more to come. We have Sting, the CCLC grant vans that have been approved, and also Nexus facility study for future improvement potential.
Thank you. 2B, curriculum assessment and public relations committee report.
I'm Melissa Wirtz, the chair of the curriculum committee. I'm just going to go over some of the highlights that we did over the past year. We reviewed improving communication goals. We discussed the new high school class offering of Tech Ed Renewable Energy course. We started some new clubs, some of them being the Student Council at the RCIS building, the Art Club, and the Pride Ally Allegiance Club. Completed memorandum of understanding with the Smart Farm, approved the automated phone system. We reviewed and revised the 7-year curriculum plan, added courses of introduction to Japanese and media PR at the RCHS building. Discussed and prepared for the charter and alternative school that is open now this year. Prepared for the community resource officer that we now have this school year. Listened to ESSER funding presentations and recommendations. Discussed learning management system platforms. Reviewed the apprenticeship program. Rolled out parent surveys. Discussed the community 4K program. Check and connect overviews. Established district goals, and the FFA Ag Learning Center. Are there any questions?
Thank you. On to 2C, Personnel Negotiations and Budget Development Committee report.
Good evening, I'm Scott Bailing, the chair for the Personnel Negotiation and Budget Committee. This past year, we reviewed the exit interviews process, reviewed job descriptions and got those updated. I'm still working on those. OPEB benefits, ESSER funding, presentations and recommendations, the Community Resource Officer, employee benefits, options and renewals, employee handbook revisions, the 2023-2024 budget discussion, co-curricular handbook proposal and participation report, and the check and connect overview. Any questions on any of that? Thank you.
On to 2D, the Policy Committee report.
I'm still Scott Bailing, and I'm also the chair of the Policy Committee. And some of the highlights we had for this past school year, explored and implemented the Neola policies, established a new social media policy, updated the public comment policy, updated the sanction form, continued reviewing and updating the student bullying policy, ESSER funding presentation and proposals, reviewed professional and support staff policies, reviewed relations policies, reviewed the student policies, reviewed the program policies, and also reviewed the finance policies. Any questions on any of that? Thank you.
Thanks. On to agenda item 3, 2022-23 goals and highlights. 3A, Richland Center District highlights.
So at the district level, and I will say that some of the building levels you'll find in your packets, agenda items B, C, and D, and pages 15 through 23 in your book. But at a district level, you'll see it on page 14. Just a couple of things to point out. Last October in 2022, the board did adopt the budget and set the levy at $9.12 per thousand. That was for the second consecutive year in an effort to stabilize the mill rate. As you mentioned or heard from some committee members, we did hire Neola to do an audit of our policies, and then we engaged in contract with Neola to take over our entire policies starting on July 1st of this fiscal year. And then paragraph number 4, that year in review, one of the big things that the district did that took a lot of time other than our goals and priorities was that of the ESSER dollars. The district was allocated just shy of $4.5 million between ESSER 2 and 3. And throughout the course of the year, some of that money was earmarked. About $800,000 was earmarked for completion of the RCHS roof. About $900,000 was used and earmarked for maintaining the support staff and sub-pay increases that were approved in 21-22. And then the remaining $750,000 underwent significant groups reviewing and providing input to how to allocate those funds. And in the end, $250,000 was allocated to each building, athletics, and maintenance in total, $250,000. Approximately $262,000 was set aside for curriculum initiatives. And then the final $238,000 was earmarked for the Personnel Negotiations and Budget Development Committee, of which $140,000 was subsequently set aside for a 3-year curriculum piloting program at Richland Center High School. So those are just some of the highlights at the district level. And then again, you would find the primary school highlights on page 15 and 16 and 17, the intermediate school highlights at a building level on page 18 and 19, and then the high school starting on page 20. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Board. On to agenda item 4, 2023-24 goals. 4A, 2023-24 goals and priorities.
So as I mentioned, one of the big undertakings that the board and administration in our district took on this past year was to identify some goals and priorities for this fiscal year, the 23-24. And after about a 6-month process, surveying our staff, surveying parents, our administration, the board as a whole, our committee members, and all the stakeholders to determine what the school district needed to focus on for the 23-24 school year. And with that, we had a lot of different ideas brought forward, and the outcomes were 3 priorities and 6 goals. 3 priorities and those 6 goals being shown on page 24, with the priorities centering around improving connections with students and addressing their mental health, recruiting and retaining high-quality staff, and the 3rd priority, to get our students college and career ready.
All right, thank you. Now on to agenda item 5, the minutes of annual meeting on July 25th, 2022.
So on pages 26, 27, and completing on page 28 was the 2022 annual meeting. One correction that I would make is on line number 1, where it says President Corcoran called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. That meeting was called to order by John Bosworth at 6:30 p.m. And so those corrections will be made and reflected in the annual meeting minutes for July 25th, 2022.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, 2023-24 budget hearing. 6A, the treasurer's report for June 30th, 2022.
So statement of cash is on page 30. That was our statement ending on June 30th, 2022. And with that, I would then pass it over to the presentation of the budget to our business official, John Bosworth.
So the budget information is numbered in addition to the overall page numbers. I'll just refer to the budget numbers, if that's okay. So page 2 of your budget packet just has some information. If you ever wonder what Fund 21 or 46 or 50 or 80 are for, there's a little bit of information there for you. And beginning on page 3, this is the year's budget, kind of like the local budget document we've been using here, but a little bit different. This is how the Department of Public Instruction wants the budget to be laid out, basically laid out by fund, and then how money comes in and money goes out inside of each fund. So this is on page 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 in your book. One thing I would point out on page 3 is you'll notice beginning the year we'll have a large fund balance, and then ending the year we'll have a smaller fund balance. As Mr. Board mentioned, ESSER dollars, this is the year that we plan to spend down a lot of those ESSER dollars that we claimed in prior years, and we have many one-time expenditures that we will use them for, in addition to about $600,000 that we did use to increase employee salaries. On page 5 of your budget, I would point out special funds 21, 23, 29. We have Fund 21. Fund 21, if anybody ever donates money to our district, we deposit it into Fund 21 and we hold it there, and then we would spend it later on in the manner that they had hoped that we would spend it when they gave it to us. A little bit below that, Special Education Fund 27. I would point out there that if you look at page 7, I would draw your attention to line 141 and line 165, the total revenue and the total expenditures. And notice those are the same. We're expecting those to be the same. They have to be the same. School districts get money from the federal government and from the state through grants to use for special education funding, but whatever that funding does not cover, then Fund 10, general operational budget for the district, has to kick in and bring back to zero. And you will hear special ed directors or superintendents or business officials tell you that the percentage that schools are reimbursed for special education is not adequate, and I would agree with that. There was a little bit of headway made this year from the state, but more movement is needed. On the bottom of page 7, debt funds 38 and 39. I would draw your attention to, I guess, line 178. Included in this year's tax levy is somewhere between $3 and $4 million that we will put towards debt. And we're prepaying a lot of debt, which saves us in interest costs down the road. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Below that, capital funds, project funds, we have a Fund 46. We have some money sitting in Fund 46. We started that 3 years ago. There's a time clock ticking on that. After 5 years, we could begin to use that. The point of a Fund 46 is that we could, as a district, deposit money in there and save it for a capital project down the road. So if we knew we needed to spend some money in 10 years on such and such, we could begin to save that money and put it in Fund 26 rather than having to fund it, instead of having to spend it, excuse me. Below that, Fund 50. Fund 50 is food service. Fund 50 is like special education in that the fund cannot go negative. So if food service does not finish in the black at the end of the year, Fund 10 has to come in and bring it back to balance. If food service does make a profit, they can keep that from year to year and use it to buy things like vending machines and such, and equipment. Below that is Fund 80. Fund 80 is additional money that a school district can levy for projects that serve the community, and we'll get to those in just a second as well. And then finally, in the 90s, these are cooperative programs, so our cooperative program with Ithaca for our cross-country, as an example, will fit inside of there. All right, on to page 10 and 11. These are just two different ways to view the revenue that the district anticipates bringing in and the expenditures that the district anticipates paying back out. Draw your attention then to page 12. You can read that for your information. I would draw your attention to this sentence right here. The maximum tax levy amount other than referendum approved long-term debt is determined through the state's revenue cap limit formula. So the state has a formula and they determine how much money our Fund 10 is capped at. That's the money we use to buy buses and footballs and pay for electricity and pay for teachers. It's all comes out of Fund 10, and that is capped. And then the following sentence, taxpayer approval through the referendum process is required if the school district wants to exceed the revenue limit. So if we want to spend more money on electricity or footballs or teachers or buses, then we have to go to referendum. All right, if you would look at page 13, this is a breakdown. So down here on the bottom of this table here, there's the proposed levy, $9,709,804. And here is the breakdown of all the different townships and cities inside of our school district. And then that total dollar value is applied to that percentage, and then here's the dollar value that each one of these townships, or the city of Richland Center, for example, would be responsible for, and the net dollar value would of course be distributed amongst all of the landowners when they pay their taxes. And that's how we wind up with our total levy. Okay, on page 14, just a little bit about Fund 80. We have two major expenditures in Fund 80, and Fund 80 is over and above what we're allowed to levy through the revenue limit. We plan to levy $120,000 this year for two things. $88,000 to help fund the community resource officer. It's an employee of the police department, but that's our portion to help pay for that. And then also $32,000 that would be put towards maintaining the Safe Routes to School trail leading towards the intermediate school. Okay, on to page 15. 15 is a review of how we did last year with our total debt. And I think I would probably draw your attention down here. To start the fiscal year, we had about $12 million in debt. To finish the fiscal year, we had $9.5 million in debt. So we paid off $2.5 million there in debt, which saves ahead of many of our schedules and saves us interest in the long run. And this year, so I'll show you in just a second, we plan to continue that pattern and pay off about $3.5 million. I think I showed that to you before. So that would bring us down to a total of about $6 million at the end of this fiscal year left in debt that needs to be paid off. Okay, on to page 16. I think you'll find that page interesting. There is a very historical page dating all the way back to 93, 94. It's showing us what was the general fund, and that's the Fund 10. How much debt service did we have? How much debt? Community service, which didn't even start until 2008, 2009. What was the total levy? How much did it change from the year before? What was the equalized value of all the property in the school district? And then what was the mill rate? So just kind of look at that. I'll show you a table in a second. But then, of course, we want to look at this line down here. This is this current year. So our general fund, we want to levy $6,164,714. That includes about $750,000 that we will put towards paying off debt in Fund 38. Fund 38 is special in that debt has to be repaid out of Fund 10. The second column, debt service. Schools are allowed to levy above and beyond the revenue limit for referendum-approved debt. So this $3.4 million would be put towards outstanding debt, which will help us save interest costs in the long run. And then I mentioned this $120,000 towards the Fund 80 for the CRO and the Safe Routes to School. If you put those three together, you get this dollar value, $9.7 million for our total levy. And then notice the equalized value has increased quite a bit this year. Just property values have grown quite a bit. And then finally, I would draw your attention to the mill rate. As Mr. Board mentioned, the last 2 years it had remained stable, and that is the plan again this year to have that remain stable at 9.12. And then finally, here's a chart showing the mill rate at the beginning of the table we just looked at previously. So you can see that the mill rate has kind of dropped gradually over time, and then it has been stable the last 3 years.
To 6C, the opening of the budget hearing.
So by state statutes, statutes require that any resident or taxpayer of the governmental unit, which is the school district, shall have the opportunity to be heard at the budget hearing. And so in a moment here, we will be looking to open the budget hearing, and any taxpayer or resident of the district has a right to be heard regarding the budget presentation and the budget for the school district.
Is there a motion to open the budget hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Wertz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bailey. Discussion, questions? And for this, we'll just do a voice vote, but if we start getting nays on resolutions or anything, then we'll go to a raising of hands. So, just to get a read of the room here, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. With that then, I'll make a motion. Is there anybody that wants to talk, say anything, ask questions? Alright. Seeing that, none then. On to 6D then, I'll make a motion, we close the budget hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Balin. Discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. On to agenda item 7, 7A, Resolution A, adoption of tax levy for operation.
Be it resolved that thereby and hereby levied a tax in the amount of $6,164,714 upon all taxable property in the Richland School District, Richland County, Wisconsin, for the purpose of paying necessary expenses to operate and maintain the schools of said district during the 2023 through the 2024 school year. Included in the above levy is $744,594 for the principal and interest on district debt services within the revenue limit.
Motion was made by Mr. Dowden. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Wertz. Is there anything else to add? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Resolution A carries. On to 7B, Resolution B, adoption of tax levy for debts.
Vote of tax for the debt of the school district. Be it resolved that thereby and is hereby levied a tax in the amount of $3,425,090 for referendum-approved debt service.
Motion was made by Mr. Lemke. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Troxel. Anything else to add? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, Resolution B carries. On to 7C, Resolution C, adoption of tax levy for community services.
Vote for a tax for community service, be it resolved that thereby and is hereby levied a tax in the amount of $120,000 for the Community Service Fund.
Motion was made by Mrs. Perkins. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Anything else to add? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Resolution C carries. On to 7D, Resolution D, salaries of board members.
Set the compensation for school board members. Be it resolved that members of the Richland School District Board of Education be paid salaries at the rate of $50 for each committee meeting, board meeting, and other meetings as the board deems necessary that he/she attends during the 2023-24 school year.
Motion was made by Mrs. Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded Mr. Bosworth. Anything else to add? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Abstain.
So we have one abstention and everybody else is aye. Resolution D carries. On to 7E, Resolution E, reimbursement of board members' expenses.
Authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of school board members when traveling in the performance of their duties as a board member. Be it resolved that members of the Richland School Board be paid their actual and necessary expenses when traveling outside the district in the performance of their duties as board members, and the reimbursement of a school board member for actual loss of earnings when duties require the school board member to be absent from regular employment.
Motion was made by Mrs. Hardy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
What's that?
I'll second.
Okay. Second was made. What? Yeah, oh, by Mrs. Dillon, my apologies. Anything else to add? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right. Resolution E carries. On to 7F. Resolution F. Authorize the sale of property belonging to and not needed by the district.
Be it resolved that the Richland School Board be authorized to sell any property belonging to and not needed by the school district.
Motion was made by Ms. Troxel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Hunterman. Anything else to add? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right, Resolution F carries. On to 7G. Resolution G, authorized to secure short-term loan when necessary to meet the operating expenses of the district.
Be it resolved that the Richland School Board be authorized to secure temporary loans when necessary in accordance with the provisions of Section 67.12 of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of meeting immediate operating expenses to maintain the schools of the district.
Motion was made by Ms. Sotheby. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Lemke. Anything else to add? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. All right, resolution G carries. I'll make a motion, we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bosworth. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.